A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Coming up on today's show, the guest menu looks like this. He is the voice of the Grambling State Radio Network. Santoria Black will join me in hour number one, talking about a big game, the game of the week in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Grambling State University hosts Alcorn State University. Then in hour number two, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, he'll join me with a SWAC football report. And then following Charles Edmond will be Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day, joining me talking Black college football. It should be, as always, a very interesting interview with Brandon B.J. Jones, Charles Edmond, and Santoria Black. Here's what's trending on today's Carlos Brown Show. Alcorn State's Willie Rat McGowan, former baseball coach at Alcorn State and was an assistant on the football team, along with Michael Fantroy, former player at Alcorn State University and coach. Both passed away this week. Our thoughts and prayers go to both Michael Fantroy and Willie Rat McGowan. And the funny thing about Willie Rat McGowan, my interaction with him basically was twice. Once he was at a football game with Alcorn State at Southern University, and he was a guy that always expressed how he felt. And he literally tore into me, I guess because I was just there. He tore into me about Southern University, and Coach Richardson at the time was let go. He said, and I quote, "Carlos, you're going to make the same mistake that Jackson State made, pushing out the door an outstanding coach." I literally said, "Coach, hey, it wasn't my fault. I don't agree with the decision, but it is what it is." And then he continued to go off on just a bad decision. And then in 2009, I want to say, SWAC Baseball Championship, the tournament at Lee Hines Field, made it in the finals against Southern University. And Southern defeated Alcorn State in that game. And Southern went on to represent the conference. But, boy, you kind of felt that if it was any time that you were not pulling for Coach Kadon's Southern baseball team, you wanted Coach McGowan to get in. They had a great run. And so my two interactions with him, I shook his hand after the ball game. You kind of felt for him. But, hey, over 700 wins, just a truly iconic figure in the conference. So, once again, thoughts and prayers go out to the McGowan family and the Fantroy family. It's part of the life cycle, but it never gets easier. It never gets easier. That's what's trending on today's Carlos Brown Show. Got some definite thoughts on Southern University and Alabama A&M last week. Southern University defeated Alabama A&M 35-31. There was the legendary broadcaster for Southern University years ago who said, if you have heart problems, you better take your heart medicine. It was a comfort behind victory for Southern University, 35-31. Some of the important points in this ball game last week was Darius Skelton. What a monster. I mean, a monster game. 198 yards passing, 238 yards rushing. That was the Skelton that you saw a lot last year. First time this year, he really was turning loose. And it's going to be interesting. And I want to get your take and thoughts on this. With Skelton, what do you think has been the problem offensively for the Jaguars? I have a theory that Skelton, you look at Skelton, I think they thought maybe trying to get him to be something that he's not, to stay in the pocket, become a pocket passer. He is not that. You know, he has athletic ability, of course, but he seemed to be in his element this past Saturday. He was able to throw. He was able to run. He was able to run the option, made good decisions, and the Jaguars were able to come through. 20,344. Heard from some of you on social media, you thought it should have been a bigger crowd. Also in this game, the defensive secondary. Look, the Jaguars' projected starters at cornerback have not played all year. One ineligible, one was hurt early on, before the season started. They gave up a ton of yardage in the pass game. The Jaguars were stopped inside the 1 yard line twice. That's 14 points in the red zone. If you look at it, if you score, the game is not as close as it was. Game should not have been close. And back to Skelton, the Boxer Road National Player of the Week, the SWAC Offensive Player of the Week, and the National FCS Offensive Player of the Week based on the performance last week. I think to the pass defense, which is ninth in the conference, it is what it is. They have not had good safety play, consistent play all year. It is my humble opinion that I think Southern has to apply and bring more pressure to kind of show up a part of your team that's just not there. You can try to make them or get them to play better or perform or get better, but realistically, it is what it is. And Coach Odoms, and you notice I say Coach Odoms, he's heavily involved in the defensive scheme, and he likes to only apply 3 rushers and drop 8 in coverage. But and they're giving the receivers a big cushion. That simply is not working. So sometimes, like in nature, you have to disguise your weaknesses, and you're exposed as far as pass defense. Why not? Come with some pressure. Mix it up. Be aggressive. Because you're still giving up tons of yardage. I would rather, if I'm going to get beat, I'm going to get beat playing aggressive. But that's the way Coach Odoms likes to run that defense. Bend but don't break. Play fundamentally sound on defense, and then eventually a team is going to either make a mistake or you're going to stop them. That hasn't worked so far this season, and going forward, teams are going to try to exploit that. Now, I will say this. The last 2 weeks, you face perhaps the best 2 passers in the conference. Now, I know Martin and Prairie, he had a great game against Southern as well. Out of those 3 quarterbacks I just mentioned with those teams, albeit still Southern won 2 out of the 3, defeating Alabama A&M, defeating Prairie View, and losing to Alcorn State. So with that being said, today, Southern takes on Virginia Lynchburg. Look, folks, I'm not going to BS you. That's a bad team. The quick notes I made was simply this. Virginia Lynchburg, they played Prairie View, they played Valley, and they played Hampton. Now Southern play a lot of people. Hopefully you get out of the game with no injuries. You win, and you do it quickly. The biggest thing is getting some of the backup players some valuable experience. And you may say, well, what kind of experience are you going to get from playing Virginia Lynchburg, who just a bad team? And that's just being nice. Albeit they gave Valley a run, and I think Valley probably overlooked them. That's the best you can get coming out of this ball game today. It's senior day. Game's at 4 p.m. today. Southern will win big. How big? As big as they want. That's the way I look at it. Virginia Lynchburg. And then next week, and I'll have an announcement on social media about the broadcast next week in Jackson, Mississippi against Jackson State. So let me do this. Let me bring in Dr. Michael Prince. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing fine. A big day for you.
It really is, man. And it's my 28th wedding anniversary. I got married at 10 a.m., November 9th, 1991, on this day.
Wow, got it down to the time. All right, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm thankful. I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I'm in a good mood. Hopefully we'll get some good football with the exception of that's going on in Baton Rouge today. Get some football across.
There it goes.
Hey, I was just as rough on the Panthers, so I'm going to give it to you too. But
equally yoked.
But it's just really, really, it's a great time, man. And I tell anybody, you find somebody just as special as you are, that is just as challenged as you are, and you grow together in grace, let God lead the way, and there's no telling where you end up because the sky is definitely the limit.
And speaking of sky is the limit, if you look at the game of the week in the conference today, Grambling State hosting Alcorn State, but if you look at the teams that are mathematically, technically, still in it, you're looking at Grambling State, Southern out of the West, the East, Alcorn State, Jackson State, Alabama A&M, and mathematically, you can look at Alabama State. A big game today.
A huge game.
In the state of Louisiana.
Huge game.
And Dr. Prince, if you're a Southern fan or alum or supporter, you're pulling for Alcorn State because an Alcorn State win against Grambling State puts them 2 games behind in the loss column. And then it makes the game next week a Southern win against Jackson State, and you pretty much have wrapped up the Western Division. Although you still got to play that Bayou Classic, and it's still going to be a big, big game. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are I back in July, and I have to reference that back to July because, people have selective hearing. I projected that Alcorn would probably go undefeated in conference. And I think they would have maybe a 3 to 5% advantage today. It's going to be a close game because it is going to be in the hole for Grambling. Technically,
and
go ahead.
Excuse me. And it's interesting to hear on social media. You have some Alcorn State fans are very confident, but then there are those who have reminded me that, I believe 6-2 in the last 8 games against Grambling State. So, it makes me think of, like in the NBA, sometimes it's all about matchups.
Yes. It is definitely about matchups. And that was what I was about to say. I was going to say, technically, these teams are somewhat mirror-like. The only exception would be I would have to give the slight advantage in the quarterbacking situation to Alcorn with the way Harper has been playing and always knowing that Noah Johnson is in reserve. And when you look at them defensively, they got somewhat of the same philosophy as far as their attack mode. And it's going to be a lot closer game than what maybe people are putting this up to be on today, I think. But I think Alcorn will find a way just to win, man. That's what they've done under Coach McNair. That's what they've done.
Yeah. It's still amazing that you look at this Alcorn State offense, they were able to just evolve quickly. And I mean quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And Harper, they refer to him as the golden child. I mean, he has just come in. He can make all the throws, touch. He can throw on the run. He can uses athletic ability. Some people think of him, well, he's just a pocket passer. No, he has athletic ability.
He does. He really does. He's deceptive, man. When you look at him on tape and then you see him in real life, and I believe that's what's throwing people off, because you can't really account for how fast and strong this kid actually is until you see it in real time. And then that time you have to adjust, and if you can't adjust quickly, then you're chasing them, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and also I look at him as cerebral. I mean, I notice he says, looking at the film, and he just manages the game as well. So he is the total package. And I tell you what, I don't know what the situation will be next year, because I know, like in professional sports, you don't lose your job because of an injury.
Right.
But boy, I'd like to be in the coach's office, in the coach's meeting, and, things play out the rest of this year going into next year. Who's going to be the starter?
Well, it is a definite luxury to have. Especially,
a great problem to have.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. And what I really hope and pray, because the portal is what it is right now, that if one of those young men, somebody's going to have to be the reserve, that they would have enough competitor in them that they would stay and see their course all the way through with the said program. I don't want guys to gather up their toys and go home because they didn't get the starting deal and go looking in the portal, for another opportunity. But it is what it is. It's the era that we're in, so it's going to do what it's going to do.
And then if we can switch, and you can send a message in, a question or a comment, Carlos Brown Show at gmail.com. Also, I have the Facebook Messenger open. If you care to leave a comment, I have a couple that have come in already. Appreciate it. Now move back to Skelton. 198 yards passing, had a couple of drops, could have well been over 200 yards. Running the option early in the game, it set the tone. I think the third play of the game, he broke about a 30-something yard run, 238 yards rushing. Is this the Skelton that everybody was waiting to see or thought you would see throughout the year?
When you look at and listen to the great Maya Angelou, she says, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. And I think Skelton was caught up not in who he was identified as, but who Southern was trying to make him, other than what his identity showed him. They gave him early success. You cannot force a guy to be a pocket passer if he's not naturally a pocket passer. You teach him that to add to his arsenal, but when all else fails, use your natural given abilities to make things happen. Now I believe it takes a process sometime on both sides. A kid's wanting to adjust because he wants to continue to play to please the coaching staff. The coaching staff have a vision how they think things should go, and then there has to come a happy medium. Are we going to continue to try to force this kid to do it the way we do, or are we going to maximize his natural given abilities and turn him loose? And I think now Coach Odom and staff has said, we're just going to turn this kid loose, and as a result, this is what you got.
Yeah, because it's always, and I agree with those comments wholeheartedly. Every year, what your personnel is, and I think you craft something every year. Let's say like this year, you're running, this on offense RPO. And then even for next year, you look at what you're doing. You're always crafting and evolving the offense and adding plays, taking out some plays to fit the personnel that you have. And you've heard me on shows past. I just couldn't see what the offensive coordinator, what was his end game, what is his goal with Skelton. And then, you bring in McDaniels, then you bring in Skelton. I think now you go with Skelton, and unless he just struggles mightily, then sometimes even if you're struggling, you still got to stick with the guy. You still got to stick with him and then let the chips fall where they may.
You do.
Offensively, and we say this, and offensively, they're still scoring 35 points. Against Alabama A&M, I just didn't understand the twice getting down at the 1 yard line and not scoring a touchdown. The game is then totally different. 14 points on that field. At minimum, you at least had 2 field goals. That's 6 points, but you're right down there. You've got to punch it in.
You have to punch it in, and it goes back to that identity crisis because each quarterback is going to bring a different skill set, right? And so you're trying to figure this thing out. Meanwhile, you got to win games and win them at an alarming rate so you can keep pace with the Alcorns. And now it looks like Grambling is breathing on your neck. So it becomes a game of attrition. And when I say that, coaches want to put themselves in the best position of winning. And so some of them have too quick of a hook. Like when you bring in Bubba, now not only are you affecting the psychological thinking of your quarterback, but it has a domino effect to your team because part of the leadership is the team is going to watch how the leader deals with his own adversity. So when the team comes to adversity, they can have perked up ears to hear what the leader is saying because he's dealt with it himself. So you want to got to play through his struggles, but then you don't want him to play through too many struggles to where you find yourself behind the 8 ball. And when you look at Grambling's situation, Hit Bottom had been the guy, and a lot of people saying, you got to pull Hit Bottom. But credit to Fobbs, he stuck with Hit Bottom. Now they're in a situation where they could make a run, and a serious run, but now Hit Bottom is the true leader amongst his team, and when he says something, it's going to have a little bit more value to it.
Speaking of that game, listener Derek says, happy anniversary, Mike Prince. Great advice. That was one.
Thank you.
Once again, happy anniversary. Anniversary to you, Dr. Prince, and your lovely wife. And also, Derek says, haven't won a Grammy since 2006. Time to end the streak. Some Red Rivers mixed in there, but still way too long. Mm-hmm. I hear you. You know, I know the feeling about streaks. At least it's not 1-9. And you'll say 1-10, whatever.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm in a good mood today, brother.
Well, and you know, a rivalry actually is defined as, you know, one team wins, then the other team wins. You know, it's kind of back and forth.
It's kind of back and forth, but it's not necessarily one every other year. There comes times when you be in a drought of 10 years. When you look at the overall record when the two teams compete, because rivals, sometimes the other team gets in a drought, but it doesn't take away the intent and the meaning of that particular game.
Yeah, but it also will give you fit to pull your hair out if you have any. If you know, it's a physical game, but then the mental aspect, I think, will start creeping in.
Well, it does. You know, it does, because then when you start playing not to lose, or you're playing with what's going to happen now, you really are not giving yourself an equal chance. And you just gotta. And it sounds like a cliche, but you got to play through that thing, man, and just keep grinding and creating opportunities to get over that hump. Yeah, and you definitely don't want to start being in that situation mentally, because there's a good chance. Let's just say things have to fall in a certain way. You get another opportunity at a team that you have not been successful against. And so confidence is big, you know, execution is big, but, you know, mentally you have to be strong as well as physically. True. To come in and say, hey, I've got a chance to win this ball game. Now, when you were speaking earlier about the defensive scheme and approach that Odoms is using, and I recall you and I had a conversation. It was off the air, and I'm gonna bring it up, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna remember the way I say it. And I know you said, well, you're giving too much cushion. Could it be? And I know Jag Nation is going to think I'm hating, but I'm not hating. But could it be that because the talent level might not be where Coach Odom would desire it, to run certain schemes is why he runs it the way he runs it. Because you would rather give a guy a cushion in front of you than to get burned on the deep play. So when you play not to get burned, you give up cushion plays, and then people nickel and dime you down the field.
Well, I would shoot a hole in that one because you playing off and giving a cushion not to get beat deep, right?
Right.
Well, guess what? They're still getting beat deep.
They're getting beat deep. But who has one of the best red zone defenses in the conference? Southern Jags.
Yeah, that's red zone.
But that's what I'm saying.
But big plays, this is happening not in the red zone. And case in point, I'll use Prairie View.
No.
Southern Southern likes to rush 3. At times they'll send a 4th defender. When they drop 8 in coverage, they play in some zone. Prairie View, Martin was able to receivers on the same page. They're able to find the area in the zone that's open.
Right.
Boom. First down, move the chains. And they'll nickel and dime you down the field.
Right.
Now, the Alcorn State game, they actually played more. They played a lot of man in that game, but guess what? The cornerbacks were overwhelmed, in my humble opinion. You're not getting any pressure, and then you had no help over the top with the safeties. And I've had people to tell me the safety play has not been well for Southern University, but the pass defense is 9th in the conference.
It's 9th in the conference, but you're in the
somebody
top
said, Alyssa said, Dr. Prince, that sounds like a prevent defense.
Well, it is. And I was what I was going to say. What you do from the 20 to the 20 don't mean a hill of beans. Don't mean a hill of beans. And because you see, you got to be designed for where you are. And everybody, for the most part, likes this RPO spread stuff. I'm not a fan of it because what happens when you get into the red zone? If you don't see the way our offenses and the SWAC are designed, they're designed for big plays. And if you don't score on the big play, you struggle in the red zone. So that's why I'm saying, okay, yeah, you're struggling and it's prevent because maybe you don't have the skill set to run man to man 75% of the game. Maybe you're going to trust the fact that I can stay consistent enough and force the wheel in the red zone. If I can keep these guys from making big plays, I'm giving myself a chance because across the board, we can say what we want to say. We all struggle in the red zone and our special teams as far as field goals suck.
Well, I'm going to go back to defensively. If you're rushing, say it's third and down and distance is important, it's 3rd and 7 or 8. I think it's all right sometimes, Southern, to come with some pressure. Sometimes. I'm not saying you have to blitz every down. I mean, you have some zone blitzes you can use. Sometimes you mix it up. I think when your back end of your defense is your weak point, help them out. Come after people.
I understand that. But then on the opposite end, I got to play devil's advocate. If I blitz and that guy picks up that blitz, now I put more pressure on an already suspect defensive backfield. Now I'm getting burned on 3rd and 7 for a big bang play. And now the people are saying, well, why didn't he play prevent? Why didn't he just play a little bump and zone?
But what if you get there and get the sack? Even if you don't get the sack, you get there and get enough pressure, you make the quarterback throw it a little early.
No, and this is true. This is true. That's why,
And I would rather get beat being aggressive than dropping 8 in coverage, or you giving a big cushion to the receiver and you still get beat deep, which has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's 3rd and 10, and I've seen it down the distance, third. And my best friend will tell you, in the press box, I have to turn my back. I can't look because I've seen this scenario so much.
Hey, look,
it's 3rd and 8 and 3 against 5. You're rushing 3.
Mm-hmm.
I like the odds with 5 offensive linemen winning against 3 rushes, unless you got Superman out of those 3.
Yes, sir.
And then you run right to the yardstick, first down.
Look, man, as a Pittsburgh Steelers
I'm just saying,
fan,
mix it up a little bit.
As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I suffer through third and long situations. I understand that. But until you have the personnel that could quantify you adding that pressure, because it really, man, it's about timing. It's about the reads. It's about the looks. And if you're already suspect with your personnel, you're going to go closer to caution than to gamble and get burnt when you already know you're suspect. That's all I'm saying the possibilities could be. Maybe the talent level is not where Odom feels comfortable versus the fans thinking you ought to try to execute another way. That's all I was trying to bring up.
And it's ironic that we're saying Odom's when you have a defensive coordinator. Boy, we're getting some good feedback. Let me read some from listeners. One agrees with you. One disagrees. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Let me pull it up here. Well, I'm going to pull up the one that agrees.
Okay.
Dr. Prince is on point. We are playing keep them in front of us defense. We get beat deep due to not having the speed to keep up with the deep threats and safety misplaying the play. We need as many players in coverage as possible until we get better secondary players. But you're still getting beat and you're still giving up third downs. All I'm saying is, can you mix it up sometimes? Bring some pressure. But you might get a sack.
But I think the point you're missing, brother, and I tried to be, as they say, politically correct in saying it, maybe your talent level is not up to par where you can bring bliss.
For what I've seen, the secondary, remember I said the two starters that are not, they're gone.
Right.
So what do you have behind them?
They were reserves for a reason. They were reserves for a reason, brother.
You got Tamari Smith, but I'll put it this way: in nature, like let's say a lion or tiger, they're injured. They're going to try to do something to shore up that weakness.
Well, what they do, they rely on their pack. They rely on their pack.
But oh, come on now. If you're going to continue to play that way, they gave up a bunch of yards last week.
Man, look, man, giving up
that's not working.
Look
all
here,
I'm
man.
saying is, can you try something else?
Prairie View's averaging 500 yards a game, and they're not winning. I don't care about no yards. I want the win. You take the yards, give me the win. You can
no. I'm saying this. Against the top teams, you're not going to get away with that. All I'm saying is, they defeated Prairie View. They defeated Alabama A&M. They lost to Alcorn State. All I'm saying is, defensively, try to mix it up.
And what I'm saying is talent.
See, people keep saying talent. There's talent on this team,
but it's not the talent. It's not the talent that you can execute what you're designed to execute. So therefore, I got to work with what I got till I get what I need.
So you keep doing the same doggone thing, and you're still giving up big yardage, and you've been able to win in spite of that. All I'm saying is there's enough talent on there. Maybe not so much at cornerback and safety, but you've got talent up front that you could do something up front to help them out.
Okay.
And that's all I'm saying. I guess we'll agree to
we'll agree.
Disagree.
We'll agree to disagree, but it's still fun. Though. I love you like a fat kid love candy.
Oh, I understand. One listener says, I disagree that the talent is not there. Odoms is playing a defense that is not conducive to the conference and the South. Everything about this defense is zone and sit back and pray the offense makes a mistake. Our defensive philosophy is horrible. I'd rather be aggressive than passive. And tell Dr. Prince congratulations on his anniversary.
Thank you, even though we agree to disagree. And see, why it's easy for us to go back and forth and say what's what, because we're not on that sideline and our livelihoods are not dependent upon that. When you look at this, would you rather be aggressive and be 1-3, or let me say passive aggressive and 4-1. Which one would you rather be?
Say it again about the.
Would you rather be aggressive? Because let's look at it like this. Mississippi Valley.
I don't think it's an A and B situation, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's got to be A and B, no C's, because C is not always the right answer. Look, Mississippi Valley does not have the talent, but Mississippi Valley is aggressive as all get out. They have been one of the, and people don't understand this, they've been one of the highly productive teams defensively as far as creating turnovers. Okay, but they don't have the certain talent. Okay, when you look at Southern University has a better talent pool than Mississippi Valley. Okay, but they're choosing to be passive aggressive to increase their probability of winning and possibility of the mistake, because we're still dealing with quote unquote rookie amateur athletes. So they're looking at the safest option to guarantee them the most wins with what they know they have. Now, that drums down to talent, it drums down to philosophy, and it drums down to execution. Okay? Because what those kids are thinking, when you got two guys missing off your defensive backfield, man, that is a huge gap in your defensive backfield. Those guys, yes, they got talent to be on an FCS Division I level, but they were reserves for a reason. And when you put a reserve in a starter's role, guess what? He's still a reserve. And it's going to take him a while to get caught up with the philosophy, the expectations, and the execution on the field. And by the time he figured that out, it's time for the next season.
Wow. So based on that, then Southern talent is not that good. And so they're playing the defense that they're playing because they can't do any better. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Here's what Johnny says. If you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me going all out. I won't sit back and let you keep punching me in the face.
Now, I'm not saying they're not going all out, though. We're not saying that the guys are not going all out. But sometimes, let's just be honest, Carlos. Let's be honest. Even when you do your best, you still not going to be better than someone who's naturally better than you. When you look, I got a philosophy. I might not be the best, but when I do my best, God is pleased. Now, if I'm doing my best, Carlos, and you just better than me, guess what, bro? You better than me. So what I got to do is try to position myself to minimize the big plays that you get on me and try to stay competitive as I can and hope that I can get a come up to steal and sneak the victory for that given moment. That's just the reality.
Well, you know what? I can live with you being better, but can I ask myself a question? Did my coaching staff put me in the best position possible to be successful? And I can live with it if you beat me man on man going up. But I don't see anything where they're making their chances better.
Okay.
I don't see. Basically, what I see 90% of the time is no matter what the down and distance is, I'm going to rush 3. I'm going to drop 8 back in coverage. If that's the best that you can do, then that's on the defensive staff. Because I'm sure as a staff, they put together a game plan each and every week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This bend but don't break philosophy.
Carlos,
I don't necessarily like that.
Carlos, if you run a 4-3 and I run a 4-6 or 4-7 in the 40-yard dash, you're going to beat me 10 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, right? Because you're just naturally faster than me. So in order for me to give myself a chance, I'm going to have to do one or two things. I'm going to have to give you some cushion and play a zone. And if I do try to play man-to-man, it's not back in the day of Mel Blount, a great Southern guy who's still a guy, who was the father of bump and run. You can't play that way anymore. So now you have to adjust to the game. The game has changed to offense.
Wait a minute, Dr. Prince. I don't see Alcorn dropping 3 and rushing 3 and dropping 8 all the time.
Because Alcorn has a better talent. You're going to see
Grambling State. They may have better talent, but It's not that Southern is way down here as far as talent. It's scheme. It's scheme. Even last year when they had cornerbacks, you can look at the last 4 or 5 years. It's still the same. What was it 2 years ago? Couldn't stop the run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this year they're better than the run. Although some people say, well, when you can throw it on them for 400 yards a game, then teams excuse.
Okay, now hit the pause. Hit the pause right there. Hit the pause right there, right? They're better on the run, but they're struggling on the pass, right? And you know where that comes from? That comes from in the trenches. And in the trenches, if I got better stout guys that's going to be able to stop the run, then I'm not going to be able to get that big of a pass rush because I've geared myself to be able to stop the run. I want to force guys to pass. To pass on me. So now I have to make the adjustment. And if I'm going to rely on those big guys up front, then I got to have some edge rushers. I got to have some linebacker play and some defensive back play that's going to be able to compensate that I have. And what I'm saying is you might not have that what you think you have.
Oh, we're just going to agree to disagree on this one because defensively, the front seven. Now, I will say the linebackers, talking to a former coach in the league, they tend to play back a little bit too much to his liking.
Mm-hmm.
But
why is that?
Talent,
why is that?
You got enough. That's old as them.
Okay.
That's scheme.
Okay.
That is scheme. You watch our Grambling State plays today. They're not going to sit back and all the time and say, well, we're going to sit back and we'll give up some yardage. No, they're going to come after him. Whether they be successful or not.
The mentality of where Grambling is right now versus where Southern is are night and day. And here's why I say that. Grambling is in a position now where they know they're going to have to force the issue. Southern is in a position where they feel confident enough that what they have, if they stick to their true identity, they will win the game. So Grambling is going to have to take the bigger risk in order to create the opportunities of winning that game. That you watch that game unfold today.
Well, at least they know how to make adjustments because Grambling was left for dead. Most people have buried them 0-4.
Right.
Now they're on the 4-game winning streak.
Right.
Well, the coaches had to do something, or let the players just came together and had a meeting with Jesus meeting.
That's
and
always
then they came
good.
up with
That's
their plan.
Good. That's
well, I guess it is, but at the end of the day, they were able to make adjustments. Let me take a few more, and then we got to get to guess.
Okay.
Willard says SU defensive scheme is over the passes and it's based on the other team making a mistake. Well, I've heard that before. This approach didn't work against Alcorn and benefited from Purview and A&M mistakes. They can be more creative in how you rush three, give the quarterback different looks, and make him change his approach on every plan. Thank you, Willard. I would agree with that.
Okay.
No, how dare you question the defensive coordinator?
Who said that?
No, I'm just saying that. I'm being facetious.
Okay. I didn't question him. I'm just saying you got to work with
and coming down from the elevator at the Alcorn game, when we asked one guy question, he said it was strictly talent. And we strictly disagreed with him. There's talent, there's scheme, there's coaching, making adjustments, all of that in the football game. If something is not working, yeah, you can settle and stick to what you've been doing, and you're going to get the same results. But it just takes a little bit of creativity to say, hey, this is not really working the way we thought it would. Let's mix it up a little bit. I don't see no harm in that. And there's not a big drop-off in talent, in my humble opinion, where you're just forced to play that way.
I didn't say it was a huge drop-off in talent. And I was just thinking.
I'm saying it.
I know you're saying it. But here's, and there's always an argument if you ask an OC or DC. They want the fastest guys. Most of them end up where? On the offensive side of the ball. They want the most talented guys as far as skill set on the offensive side of the ball. And you're playing with a stacked deck. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Johnny said scheme, not about talent. It's all scheme.
Okay, you tell that to Mississippi Valley. I think they
same
have one
defensive scheme since he's been here. Bend and hope not to break. Can't win the big one with that mentality.
Okay, I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that. Sometimes you could be so conservative that you play not to lose, and when you play not to lose, guess what? You lose.
Well, I just know if something's not working, it's just really unconscionable to still do the same thing and expect a different result.
Well, and you know what? And I feel the same way about my Panthers sometimes. But sometimes these coaches say, just work the plan, it's going to come together. Work the plan, it's going to come together. Work the plan, it's going to come together. You get a couple of wins. See, I told you, if you guys just work the plan and execute, it's going to come together. Maybe that's what they're dealing with.
No. Prairie View, they've got defensive issues.
But according to the powers that be, it's not that big of a deal. We just got to do a better job offensively. That's the approach that they're saying. And
can't agree with that either.
No, I cannot agree with that. You got what I'm saying? So you go like, okay, you got to figure this out sooner or later, because every year you can go up and down the list, skill sets, running backs, quarterbacks, always in the upper echelon. Now, I'm talking about Prairie View's case right now. But defensively, we're the poor man's version of any type of defense, please. I'm just saying, brother.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that point. I'm going to try to squeeze in Santoria Black right now to give us the Grambling State's perspective on a huge matchup with Grambling State and Alcorn State coming up at a little bit after 2 p.m. today. It's the game of the week in the conference, but it's not the only game. We've got some other big games, and particularly you're going to be looking also in Huntsville, Jackson State, a team that's hot, and one loss in the conference as far as on the L column, and they're still in a fight to get it done. If Grambling State pulls off the victory today, then that Jackson State, Alcorn State game will have even bigger significance at the end of the year, which is fast approaching. You also have Alabama A&M. They've got to go to the reservation. So there's a thin line between wins and losses. Alcorn can take care of business today. They're in the driver's seat big time still. But a loss, then it's going to be very interesting. Going to take a time out. When I come back, visit with Santoria Black of the Grambling State Radio Network. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Serving the community through faith and athletics. The Open Mic Broadcast Network.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too.
I'm in.
Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a 1-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. First guest of today's show, Santoria Black of the Graham State Radio Network. Good morning to you, sir. Santoria, how you doing?
Greetings and salutations, my brother. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm going to have my ears and eyes in Grambling, Louisiana for the game of the week in the conference. Grambling State hosting Alcorn State. Santoria, this team, 0-4. Everyone had them for dead. Now on a 4-game winning streak. What has the change been for this Grambling State football team?
Well, I'm not quite sure if it was the disciples, Jesus, or just, a team effort. But I tell you this much. What was really interesting about this ball game is, like, Jackson just turned on the light. And I think, winning is one of those things that once you do it and you know you can do it, you feel a lot better in understanding how to do it. And I think that's what's happened. They played extremely well against Jackson. You turn around, A&M comes in, tough team. You win that ball game by getting some crucial turnovers on defense. Then after that, you play against a Texas Southern team, which, just lost to Southern University, not by much, and has played tough. But you put up, 300 yards of offense in the first quarter of that ball game, and we just knew that Moses had just been with hit bottom that entire first quarter because, man, he rushed for 3 touchdowns, tossed a couple more, and we was like, who is that? That's the kid we've been looking for. So, played well there. And so now, and then let's not forget about Pine Bluff. That was really the game that I think a lot of people that started opening their eyes because Pine Bluff is very hard to play there, a different kind of atmosphere, but they were able to come out and just really play well. And so I think the biggest thing is the defense has stepped up. Even with all the injuries, Joseph McWilliams, he's got 4 interception returns for a touchdown this year. Then you look at how many turnovers they got. Lead the conference in turnovers with 13. They've got 13 turnovers. So I think the defense has been big, but the offense has started to manage the game a lot better.
Yeah, because it was at one point, Coach Fobbs, and I'll paraphrase it, he was asking for some quarterback, any of the quarterbacks, to take this offense by the horns and play. And defensively, causing turnovers, getting it done. Now it just seems to me, from the outside looking in, that offensively, they've gotten better quarterback play. and with a running game. Am I right?
Well, yeah, you're right. Coach Fobbs did, have him, talk to Jeremy Hickbottom, and he played 3 quarterbacks, as a matter of fact, in that game against Alabama A&M, and basically said during that week of practice, invited people to the quarterback of discipleship and said, is there one? Because
is there one?
No one, because nobody was really stepping out as the front runner in doing that. And it reminded me of 2011. We played 2 quarterbacks then with DJ Williams and Frank Rivers. And Coach Williams was at that time, is there one person that wants to step up and be the leader at the quarterback position? But, finally, I think that this team has Jeremy Hickbottom. Coach Fobbs talked about how much pressure he put on him. He's responded well. I think that, him running the football, he's the 6th leading rusher now in the conference. So I think that he's really put a lot of pressure, and, Jeremy has responded.
Visiting with Santoria Black of the Grambling State Radio Network, new offensive coordinator, no stranger to Baton Rouge, Mark Orlando. Was there an adjustment period with Coach Orlando now as the offensive coordinator at Grambling State, or was it just strictly the lack of quarterback play? Did we lose Santori?
I'm still here. I'm sorry.
Okay. You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, just repeat the question real quick. Technology has gotten the best of me.
Okay. I was saying the adjustment, was it the adjustment of Mark Orlando, now the offensive coordinator, or was it strictly the lack of consistent quarterback play that got the offense off to a slow start?
Well, I think it's, one, you have to look at injuries. That has played a big part. Grambling came into the year with a lot of injuries to guys who were supposed to be, front runners and leaders of this team on offense and defense. But specifically on offense, I think that one of the biggest problems is you came into the year and it was not being able to finish. If you look at that game against Louisiana Tech, I think that's a great example. They had that game won. They had the ball at the very end, got the onside kick, had the ball at midfield, and they were not able to finish that ball game. Crucial missteps during that game cost them at the very end. And so, I think that's the same thing you can talk about with that game against Prairie View A&M University, especially Alabama State. I think that's the game that the coaches and the players really took really personal, because that was the game that they had in their hands and they let it slip away. The 3 things that I think that they've responded to, Coach Fobbs has really been stressing about. First thing is penalties. There was a few of them even last weekend where there was a holding and false start from 3 consecutive series to start the series. The second thing is pass interference and not allowing those guys to get behind you, especially in the seam, and then when you're talking about going down the field. And then the third thing I think that was a big problem on offense is Hickbottom had to learn that, hey, if you don't have it, do not take a sack. Throw the ball away and live to play another day. I think those are the things that Coach Orlando, along with Kendrick Nord, who's the quarterback coach, really had to talk about. Hickbottom had to learn, hey, look, if you don't see a guy downfield, don't do it. If you haven't looked that receiver off, don't throw it over there where the guy in the secondary can bite and get a chance to come over and take the ball. Throw the ball away or in an area where either the receiver can catch it or no one can catch it. So I think those are the major things. It's just decision-making that sometimes you don't even see on the stat sheet that cost you a game.
Interesting point. Visiting with Santoria Black of the Grambling State Radio Network. Of course, a big game today, 2 p.m. against Alcorn State University. Grambling State has had success against Alcorn State in the last 8 ball games. What does Coach Fobbs and the staff preach to the team about the game today?
Well, I think the one thing is that, Alcorn is a very balanced offense. When you look at quarterback Felix, he can pass the ball, he can run the ball. You can't say, okay, well, we're going to stop Alcorn from passing because then they're going to run the ball. You can't say we're going to stop them from running because they can pass the ball well. I think that the biggest thing is you cannot have mistakes on offense. Defensively, even in a couple of series against Texas Southern, they allow big plays to happen. I mean, Texas Southern had 600 yards of offense, but couldn't score in the end. I think you do that against Alcorn, they might score 70 points. So you cannot afford to have lapses. And he talked about that in the press conference. The end of the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter, they had to have a come to Jesus meeting where there was some loud encouragement and acknowledgement that had to go on. And I think that after that,
they kind of figured out, hey, we got a ball game to play. It's too early to celebrate homecoming yet, because if this team comes back, there won't be no celebration going on. So I think that was a wake-up call as well. That's something that they're talking about this week is you cannot take plays off against this team. You've got probably one of the best teams in the conference in rushing offense against the second best team in the conference in rushing defense. So, you take a look at that. They're pretty good at stopping the run. You also have guys who, an offense on Alcorn that does not turn the ball over very much. So what does that mean? You're going to have to play extremely well on offense and defense, and their discipline. So they're looking at not making mistakes, making sure that they don't turn the ball over, and then, of course, not having all those penalties. We had close to as many penalties as some teams had yards last week, almost 200 yards of penalties. You can't do that. So I think that's just going to be the major thing is the mistakes, the penalties, and throw the ball away if you don't see anybody open.
Sounds like an excellent plan.
Well, hopefully, I'm not a coach, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Well, I have not seen Grambling in person this year. I've seen Alcorn State, and when you talk about Alcorn State being balanced, exactly, and a balanced team on offense, it gives you so much more to prepare for. And I think from the outside looking in, you've got to give him different looks, and I don't think you just sit back and have that attitude, well, Alcorn's going to make a mistake. Can't give up the big plays. I saw plenty of big plays in that Southern Alcorn State game this year. So I'm just interested to see how Grambling will attack Alcorn offensively with their defense. I'm going to be very interested in seeing how they attack Alcorn State's offense.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing that as well. I can't wait to see it. I'm just glad I'm going to be able to get a good seat in the booth to see this take place because, the last several years you've needed medicine to watch the end of these ball games. Overtime, you miss an extra point. Then, of course, you had a big close game last week. So, I'll just tell people this. If you go into the game today, bring your heart medicine and your blood pressure medicine. You will need it.
Reminds me of J.C. Police. He used to call us Southern game. He would say, get your heart medicine if you got heart problems, because it's going to be one of those games. There's going to be some stress. There's going to be some excitement. It's going to be some all across the board. Who challenges adversity and who can overcome it, who can respond to it, that's going to be important as well. Santoria, appreciate the time as always. Have a great broadcast and look forward to seeing you real soon.
Yep. Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys have Virginia University of Lynchburg of Our Saviors of Mother there today. So
praise them.
So, just don't just mess with the church folk too much because, they are Jesus' people. I know you're going to beat them by 50, but don't beat them too bad because, they don't have to pray for you now. So,
I'll be like the demon that said, Jesus, I know. Who are you? I'm going to put 100 on you if I can. That's just the way it is.
No, don't let it. And especially that boy number 48 that when he ran against that guy from Edward Waters and broke his leg, you do that against Virginia Lynchburg, they may put hands on you. So, just be careful. Don't be too bad today. I know that the Skeletons going to have a good game and y'all might put in that boy from Southern Lab because y'all going to be up so big. So just be careful.
You want to hear my thing? Play a lot of people, no injuries, win early and win big, and play a lot of reserves. That's the way you look at it. And let the church say amen on that one.
Amen. Amen. Is there one?
Santoria, we'll talk to you real soon, brother. Have a good one.
Man, look, I appreciate it. I appreciate all your help and your and all of the great compliments, man. I really appreciate it.
Well deserved. Great job on the ESPN3 broadcast, Southern against Prairie View. Great job.
I appreciate it. Y'all take care now.
All right, take care.
All right.
That was Santoria Black of the Grambling State Radio Network. An interview and a little church at the end. A little. Going to take a quick time out and come back. Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. He's back on the campus that he graced for 4 years. But as we talked to him plenty of times before,
Alcorn plays his check. Graham is the school he graduated from. Take a quick time out. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk from Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up.
Yes, I am.
M2.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work. There's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control of my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Broadcasters come into our lives on radio and TV, bringing us information and entertainment. Broadcasters are there for us, but who is there for them when they fall on hard times? The Broadcasters Foundation of America provides financial assistance to broadcasters in acute need due to a critical illness, accident, or other serious misfortune. If you know of a broadcaster on the air or behind the scenes who may need our help, please share our message. Visit broadcastersfoundation.org.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Guest number 2, Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, joins me now. Charles, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Carlos. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Doing much better than I was 7 days ago. I can speak at least. This time last week, I could barely speak a syllable.
Oh, my goodness. That's not good, but I'm glad you're feeling better. And, boy, you have to be better. The game of the week, Alcorn State at Grambling State University, a Grambling State program that usually feels very confident playing Alcorn State in, quote-unquote, the hole in Grambling State. Should be a good one today. What are your initial thoughts on this ball game?
Well, first of all, just to set the scene here, it's a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. It's going to be about 60 degrees with a little nip in the air. But this is clearly the game of the week. And my initial thoughts, I'm anxious to see the development of Felix Harper facing a very aggressive Grambling defense that has double-digit interceptions, 4 returns for a touchdown, very aggressive on the defensive side, and how Felix Harper is going to be able to continue to step up in the pocket or find his reads, his checkdowns, and to be able to hit the right guys, because Grambling is going to try to create havoc on defense. I think they feel like with Hickbottom, they can manage it on offense, even though Hickbottom had 185 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing against Texas Southern last week. So you got to account for him, obviously. And Fred McNair said, there's not going to be a spy on him. We're just going to do our normal defense and play it straight up. So we'll see how that turns out. So, I think this game, clearly the Braves are rolling. Grambling's on a little bit of a run right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all matches up. This game has the interest of 3 teams in the SWAC in terms of the division race. On the eastern side, of course, the Braves control that, but Alabama A&M Jackson State, they play at 1 o'clock. The winner of that game stays alive. The loser is probably eliminated. And then on the western side, the Jaguar Nation playing out of conference today, but, they're going to have their eyes on this game because an Alcorn win over Grambling pretty much secures the Western Division for Southern probably the next week.
Yeah, Southern would have to, they could wrap it up at Jackson State next week if Alcorn State defeats Grambling State today. I want to go back quickly because we've had some interesting conversation about defense and being aggressive. And I noticed you said that Grambling State, their defense it's aggressive. They're going to come
after Alcorn State, and I believe you said it's going to be interesting to see how Felix Harper and an offensive staff, how they handle that. Do you think you just can expect Grambling to sit back and just not be aggressive? Why did you make that statement?
Well, because I think Grambling's going to try to rattle Felix Harper a little bit. Mm-hmm. With Noah Johnson being a veteran quarterback, it's tough to rattle a guy like that. But with Felix Harper, this is all still new. I mean, this is his fifth game. So I think they're going to try to bring pressure and make Felix Harper make some additional decisions that he might not have made in previous games. And I think if the offensive line can hold up, I don't think there's any doubt that Felix Harper can make the right read. It's just a matter of making the right throws and receivers catching it. If Grambling doesn't get home, Felix Harper can run the football, but I think he's more of a pocket passer where he's going to hang in there a little bit and try to make those throws.
Mm-hmm. And I saw firsthand when he's allowed to sit back there and be comfortable, he is an assassin. He can pick you apart. Did you see the same thing that I saw when Southern came to Alcorn?
I did. I mean, it's been the case all year, and it was kind of a surprise, really, to be honest with you. Looked at probably not the McNeese game because that was his first game, but the Prairie View game was really the eye-opener for me, in which he was able to hang tough in there. And the receivers, I mean, we've got probably one of the top receiving corps in the conference, Chris Blair and Juan Anthony and Pringle. They can get open. And we saw what happened in the Southern game where the Jaguars back end couldn't handle Chris Blair. But the one thing, and so, the one thing about Southern trying to get home, they just didn't get home. And Felix Harper made the right reads, the right calls, and he's going to have to do that today. But I think Everett Todd and Grambling's defensive coordinator is going to throw some different wrinkles at this Braves offense. And it's just a matter of how Elliot Bradley, the Braves offensive coordinator, makes that adjustment. I think we're going to have to run the football first. I think that's what we're going to have to do to kind of slow things down a little bit, crowd the box, and I think then you can get what you want. Because Texas Southern, I mean, let's face it, Grambling really handled it, but Texas Southern almost had 600 yards of offense. Now, granted, they were behind and they had to throw it all over the yard. But for a team that's been scoring a bunch of points, Texas Southern, to get almost 600 yards on this Grambling defense, that's something we'll have to keep an eye on today.
Let's just dispel this myth that Texas Southern they're winless, but they put up 500 yards against Southern, 600 against Grambling. You say?
Yeah.
Offensively, they can get it done. Their issue is at other spots. If you get my drift with Texas Southern, it'll be interesting to see if they can put together some defense in the next couple of years. But offensively, they're perhaps only going to get better, and they're putting up yards now. So just wanted to say that about Texas Southern University. We've talked about the game of the week, of course. Grambling State hosting Alcorn State. In that ball game, another big game, and then we'll look at last week's action in the conference. Jackson State going to Alabama A&M. Coach Maynard, at the end of the game, gathered his team up, and it looks like he was giving a heartfelt, emotional speech. I'm sure he probably does that after every game. But I guess if I'm in that huddle, I'm thinking he's saying 2 years in a row, we had Southern on the ropes, and we couldn't come through either time. How do you think they're going to be now at home, which they've tended to not play as well at home versus the road? What do you think their mindset is going to be coming into this ball game against a Jackson State team that was left for dead as well, but now they're on a winning streak?
I have 4 words. I have no idea.
Dr. Jekyll of the Alabama football team? Okay.
That's exactly right, because when you think that you leave them for dead and they come alive, and you think they're alive and well, and they pass out on you. Look, the Southern game last week, they had that game. And I predicted that they would win the game.
Charles, I had forgot about that. Excuse me.
Yeah, I did.
Once again, just a little bit outside on that pitch.
Yeah, yeah. But, A&M had the lead late. And you got to give Skelton credit. And Skelton was the difference in that game. The plays he made with his feet were outstanding. So, you got to give him credit, over 100 yards of rushing himself last week. But, for A&M, this is, 238, and, he was the difference. If I'm A&M, you're at home, this is your last chance. If you lose today, it's over. If you win, and if Grambling beats Alcorn today, then it's Alcorn and A&M the game of the week of the East next week. So, I understand, Maine is a passionate guy. I kind of learned that the last few weeks. But this team still has a chance, and they're at home, and they got to play the best game of the year. A lot of people were ready to throw Hendricks off the cliff, too. And that Valley game kind of woke them up. They beat Prairie View in overtime, double overtime, and then they get it done against UAPB. So I think that's going to be a very entertaining game. I think defensively, though, if Jackson State can bring in a little bit defensively, I think offensively they've got a little rhythm going, and they're scoring a bunch of points. So, if I'm to answer your question, if I'm Coach Maynor, like, look, guys, we let this one get away, but we're still in the race. This is our house. We got to protect our house and win this game and eliminate Jackson State, and then go to Alcorn and we'll see what happens.
Visiting with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, a SWAC football report. Last week results, you just mentioned it briefly, but Southern over Alabama A&M, 35-31, 5-4 in the season, now 4-1 in conference play. It was Alabama State over Mississippi Valley State, 27-0. Alabama State still moving along in this football season. Big question is, will Ely be there at the end of the season? I didn't think so at first, but now I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking he may have done enough to continue on at Alabama State. We shall see. I was Grambling State over Texas Southern 55-20. Texas Southern winless on the season, but one thing you can say about Texas Southern, they can produce a lot of yardage on offense. They definitely can. And then Jackson State over UAPB 21-12. What a season. Didn't think much of UAPB where they were predicted to finish in the conference. They were the talk of the conference in the first third of the season. Southern University comes in 31-7. They lose to Grambling State, and they lose to Jackson State 21-12. Still, UAPB, in my humble opinion, is ahead of where I thought they would be, but it still shows that they still have some work to do. Your thoughts on UAPB, Charles?
Well, first of all, they have the right man for the job, in Cedric Thomas. He is the right fit for that situation. He's a UAPB guy, so he knows the area well. He knows the people in the administration well. And UAPB is not the type of place that's just going to fire coaches quickly like Florida State did this week. They're going to get an opportunity. You're going to get an opportunity. Monty Coleman struggled in his final as a a lot of folks thought that it should have been gone a lot sooner than what it turned out to be. But, UAPB administration doesn't give you a chance. So they have the right guy. It's just a matter of with them, he's a defensive-minded coach. So you have a head coach who knows defense. But his team's been scoring a ton of points, up until late. They lost a low-scoring game. Defensively, they play well enough to beat Jackson State. But then obviously offensively, you still struggle, and that may be because Jackson State's defense is playing a little better. So I think it's still a work in progress. And I think for Cedric Thomas, he just has to continue to go to work. I think he's the right guy for the job. And I think over time, I think he'll just fine. Just relax and zero patience if you're a UAPB supporter football. It may happen, there's no question about that, but they have to continue going forward.
Charles, you're breaking up. I don't know if you're moving around or it's just...
Let's see. Yeah, well, I'm up here in the press box. Is it better?
Yeah, a lot better.
Okay. All right.
Okay. A lot better. Visiting Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Game of the week. Grambling State hosting Alcorn State. And also, you've got Alabama A&M hosting Jackson State. Two big games in the conference. Woo, boy, I'm telling you, it's going to be exciting, those two particular games. If by chance, Alcorn State goes down today against Grambling State University, what do you think will be the reaction of Brave Nation?
Obviously, disappointment. I mean, because Grambling has been one of the better teams in the conference for years, and it's tough to win here. I think Braves fans will be disappointed because this team's been playing so well to this point. Clearly, if there will be disappointment, in the short term. Grambling and Alcorn are huge rivals. And, you just go back to late Steve McNair. We had a 62-56 game here way back when, and, that's when offenses were king in this conference. So it would be disappointment because, we beat Grambling down the stretch last year at our place, and I know Grambling's going to be ready, and we got to be ready. We got to play our best game of the year. If we don't win this game, there will be disappointment. There's no question about that. But in the grand scheme of things, we still control our own fate in the Eastern Division, and I think that's the bigger picture in winning another division title. And we just got to get home and get it done. If we win this game, clearly we'll be on a whole nother trajectory. If we can win this game, and I think it'll be off the charts if the Braves can come in here and get it done in a very tough place to play. But if we don't win, sure there'll be disappointment. Grambling's playing well right now. And I think you're catching a Grambling team that's still, you talk about Grambling, you talk about defense first for the first time in a while. You're typically talking about Carter and Kincaid and slinging the ball around and scoring a ton of points, but Grambling's defense is what's carrying the team right now. So I think if the Braves offense can break through and continue to do what they've been doing, Southern did a nice job, holding them 27 points and we went 6-3 at the half. But the Braves have to come out really and start fast. That's what Fred McMahon's talked about. But there'll be disappointment if we don't win this game. But everything is still in front of us. We still control the East. Got a little bit of a cushion, but the screws will be a little tighter if we don't win this game today.
We got Derek, who has an interesting comment. He says, "Shout out to McClellan for readjusting the schedule and backloading the schedule like this. NFL concept: Alcorn, Grambling, Alcorn, Bama A&M, Southern, Alabama A&M, Southern, JSU, etc. Will they ever release the master schedule, you think?" And you just interviewed him for today's broadcast, him meaning Dr. Charles McClellan. What do you think?
If I'm a betting man, I'm going to probably say no. The conference probably won't. Maybe individual institutions might if they decide to, and I would probably say no to that too. That's just something that...
It might be ways of getting that information. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there are ways of getting it.
I mean, not for the public, but some privilege we have by doing what we do.
Correct.
Dr. McClellan, listen, I know I'm in trouble, but go ahead.
Yeah, we can get the stuff. We can get the good, but no, I mean,
does this sound like a drug deal being made or something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, getting the stuff.
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, that's very valuable information for fans. I think with the 7-game mandate, who comes off, who comes on. I mean, people have asked me about that because we haven't played UAPB in a number of years. We played Texas Southern a couple of years ago, or a 2-year deal. It didn't count. So that is a very good question. What teams come on? Who rolls off going forward? I mean, because there is going to come a time in which Southern and Alcorn, not Southern Alcorn, Southern Jackson State wouldn't count. That's going to happen at some point down the road. So the question is, will those two teams play? And that's a whole other discussion that I talked about with the commissioner. And, for the most part, I mean, I think that I could share this, and you said in an interview that he's not going to get in the way of those games if they don't count, like Southern Jackson, when that happens, because it feels like it's a real opportunity for you to score when you're playing, two schools play. And some people, like my buddy Ken Rashad and I, had an argument about that, a full-blown argument about the conference should say, no, you should not play, period, if it doesn't count. And that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But
yeah,
this commissioner's not going to step in on that. But I think the master schedule probably won't be released at this point, maybe further down the road, maybe. If there's enough pressure, fans really want it, I think there's a way where the conference can release it in bits and drips and drabs. But a 10-year schedule, I doubt that would happen.
Well, I know on Southern's side, you, of course, it was general knowledge, you play everybody in your division, and you play 4 teams from the opposite division, and one team is not going to be on there for 2 years. So the Southern case, it's Mississippi Valley. So 2021, they will probably appear in 2022. Now, right. For Alcorn State, I think you will pick up UAPB when your schedule comes out. And let's see if I'm wrong on that one. If I'm wrong, then I'll acknowledge it as always. But the thing about, I don't like it, but I can't stop it. I can voice my opinion on what you talked about. Southern and Jackson State, there's going to come a time that's going to be, it's not going to count in the conference standing, but it'll count overall. Nothing I can do about it. But I just try to be consistent. And I don't like it. But who am I to stop progress? they will play. All I can do is voice my opinion about it. But it's an 8-conference mandate now, and it's going to be that way for 10 years. So somebody from the Eastern Division will rotate in that 10-year period off for 2 years. Yeah. And that's just the way it is. But, at least from the conference standpoint, And let me say this. I'm glad Alcorn stays on the schedule. I hope they never fall off. Now, that's the Southern fan speaking. That's me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody to say, well, I bet you they'll be glad when they roll off because they haven't had success in the last few years. No. It should be mandatory. But anyway, I got that off my chest. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think for a fan's perspective, I think fans would, of course, our fans, because of the success that we've had against Southern, would love to keep Southern on the schedule. But what about Grambling? I think that's 2 schools 2 hours away, and I think that's how a lot of our folks are looking at it. There's, Grambling and Alcorn should play every year, whether the game counts or not. My own personal opinion, Alcorn Southern, Alcorn Grambling should be on the schedule every year, whether they count or not. I think those are good revenue generators. I think the rivalry, it is just a huge test no matter when you play or where you play. I think those 2 games mean a lot to our fans. I think it means a lot to Grambling fans. And I think it means a lot to Jaguar fans.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, with that being said, let's get some predictions out of you. I guess I'll predict as well. Jackson State at Alabama A&M. Major implications. I'll go first, Charles. Alabama A&M, a team that can put up points. Glass he's just been tremendous. He sits in that pocket, and if he gets protection, he can deliver. Alabama at A&M at home, they've been kind of they played their better games on the road, in my humble opinion, for the most part. I'm going to go ahead, and I think Alabama A&M bounces back, and they win it by less than 7. I got Alabama A&M winning by 3 points. I'm going to say it's going to be 31-28. And I'm giving Jackson State 28 points
unbelievable.
I'm going with Jackson State. I've been kind of back and forth on this game all week. And I've said this, and it's kind of proven itself a little bit. And until it goes the other way, I'm gonna stick with it. A&M just doesn't bring it at home.
Mm-hmm.
And when they play at home, it's a whole nother gear. I thought they played with a lot of passion against Southern last week. I saw that game online. They just couldn't get off the field in that last drive, and they played better on the road. If you can't get up at home for a game like this, an elimination game, loser, this game is out. The winner stays alive. But A&M has not shown to me that they can win a big game at home. They won a big game in Birmingham in the Magic City. But I'm going with Jackson State. I think Jackson State's found another gear. They won the high-scoring shootouts, and they won the low-scoring slogs, like it was at UAPB. And a lot of people were ready to throw Hendricks under the bus. He stood tall and said, "We're not changing a thing." And so far, it's panned out for them. And I think they will win today.
Well, I can tell you, coaches are just like everybody else. They can be stubborn, too.
Yeah.
They can be stubborn. We don't want to change. It's going to work because I say it's going to work. Going to be in.
Well, only time will tell. You know that.
There you go. Yeah, time will tell. You're praised and then you're buried. And sometimes that could be in the same season. Alabama State at Texas Southern University. Is this the game where Texas Southern finally comes through and win a ball game? What do you say, Charles?
Yeah, I am going to go with Texas Southern. I think that McKinney quietly is building something there. I think he's just learning how to win. And with a first-year head coach and his scheme and system and, dealing with everything, they just haven't done that yet. I do think they'll break through today. It's always a long trip when a Bama team comes to Texas and vice versa. You always kind of give the edge to the home team in that situation, whether they're flying or busing. I think teams now are flying to Texas instead of taking that 20-hour or 18-hour bus ride. I'm going to go with Texas Southern. I think they will break through today, and they'll get their first win.
Wow, that's a big prediction. But I don't feel quite that way, although I can see it. I'm going to take Alabama State and their defense. Texas Southern defense is just, they're not there yet. I'm going to be nice about that. They're not there yet. I'm going to take Alabama State in this one, although it may be a close ball game. I think Alabama State has just enough to get it done. Offensively, Alabama State, that's where their challenge is. I think defensively, they're going to be able to slow down Texas Southern because we've talked about it. They can produce a lot of yardage, and they can put some points on the scoreboard. Hopefully, they'll have a nice crowd out. That's just a mystery. In a big city like Houston, the crowd, the home crowd, has just been not good at all. UAPB at Prairie View A&M. Boy, what could have been? What could have been? These two teams, can you say they mirror each other in a way? Prairie View A&M at home. I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to take Prairie View A&M. Coach Dooley will dial up some offense as usual. And which defense is my question? Which defense is going to slow down the opposing offense? But I'm going to take Prairie View in this one.
We can make an argument that this game was probably the more entertaining game of the day. With both teams. Offensively,
yeah.
Yeah, in terms of both teams, scoring a ton of points. Although Prairie View defensively hasn't been able to get off the field yet, and I say that in a kind way, and that's just the truth. That's just the reality of what Prairie View hasn't done defensively. Offensively, they've scored enough points to where they can be undefeated, but they can't get off the field defensively. I'm gonna, I like Cedric Thomas. I think Prairie View at this point, they kind of fizzled last year. I'm gonna go with UAPB in this one. I think after the tough loss to Jackson State, I think the Lions bounce back. Not saying Travy's packed it in. There's still games left. Clearly it's just playing for pride at this point. I think they'll play well at home, but I think UAPB wins the game.
Interesting.
I'm going out there. I'm going out on a limb, Carlos. I'm rolling the dice big time on these.
Well, I just hope everybody's objective. I know personal feelings, and I know you're close to him, the head football coach at UAPB. I think they're on their way, but just not just yet. But again, I think they're ahead of where I thought they would be. So they look forward to the future. There's a final game, Virginia Lynchburg at Southern. I don't think a prediction is even needed on this one. It is what it is. Yeah. Dr. Prince says the over-under. Well, Prairie put 51 points on the Virginia Lynchburg. I don't know. Knowing Coach Odoms, he's not the type of guy that will, believe it or not, run up the score. But we know Southern will win. So no prediction on that one, Charles. It is what it is.
Well, I will say this. I hope after this game, you got Jackson State and Grambling coming up. I hope in this game, Southern takes care of business early to where you can play everybody on the roster, including McDaniel. Get him some meaningful reps. I think that's going to be the key. Southern proved to me that they can win the tough games and pick themselves up off the deck after losing to Alcorn. It was tough, but they were able to get it done. Play everybody on the roster, give everybody some snaps, don't get anybody hurt, and if possible, of course you can't control that, and get yourself focused for Jackson State and Grambling down the stretch. I think that should be Dawson Odom's plan today.
I would agree with that. And the only thing I would add is work on some things that you haven't done throughout the season, albeit as Virginia Lynchburg. Hopefully, I won't see but 2% of the game in third and long, dropping 8 and rushing 3 against this team. If you do that, shame on you. Got to start, look, these second string and third string, look, from going forward, start playing some man-to-man. Guess what? You've seen some great DBs, didn't start off well at Southern, but they got put in the baptism, the fire. You're never going to be able to play man-to-man the way you should if you don't start playing it more. So that's my goal for this game, Lynchburg. No rushing 3 and dropping 8. And if I see it, I'm just going to lose it. I may get tossed out. So on that note, but you get my point. Work on things that you need to work on and get ready for the stretch. Win the week, each week going forward. And on that note, Charles, have a great broadcast. I'll be tuning in on both sides. I'll be in the man cave, listening to as much games that I can and watching as much as I can. What a day in the conference.
Yep, I agree. And just buckle up and enjoy this day because you never know what you might expect in the SWAC, especially this time of year.
Well, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be adding some basketball, some other news and notes in the conference. But I tell you what, Valley lost by almost 100 points in basketball. Oh, that doesn't sit well with me. My goodness. But
I guarantee you, Carlos, it doesn't sit well with Lindsey Hunter either. I guarantee you, he is not happy about that. That's his first year as head coach of Mississippi Valley. You know, he's not. I guarantee you, he is steaming about a game like that. I mean, losing is one thing, but to lose like that, I know is brutal for him right now.
And you know, it's the time of year. Well, they're going to play some of the top teams and teams that are well established. So you just hopefully you can come close break through and win a couple. By the way, Alcorn State women represented themselves well against Memphis. And so kudos to them. Kudos to the young ladies. I did get a chance to see that score. But anyway, we'll be talking some basketball. Then before you know it, baseball. Some potential changes. I will give credit. I listened to Dr. Michael Prince's show with Coach Carlos James. I wonder where that guy came from. But he had some interesting tidbits about baseball that perhaps coming down the pipe real soon. So we'll get into all of that. Have a great broadcast. Talk with you next week, Charles.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Take a quick time out. When I come back, Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. I guess he recovered from homecoming last week. And boy, what a beautiful sight. Oh, unbelievable. Back in my younger days, I would tailgate a lot. I couldn't hang last Saturday. I saw every kind of food imaginable. And they're just walking to the press box. A beautiful occasion while people get together and enjoy themselves. You got to love it. Brandon B.J. Jones coming up next on the Carlos Brown Show.
As a dad, you'll probably spend years teaching your son how to hit a baseball, how to throw a tight spiral and hit a receiver, how to spring off a diving board and hit the water, how to hit a 1-wood and a 9-iron, how to hit the bullseye, how to hit the strike zone, hit a jump shot, hit the open man, hit the hockey net, and maybe the most challenging of all, how to hit the books. But the question is this: how much time will you spend teaching him what not to hit? Teach your son early and often that all violence against women is wrong. For tips on what to say, visit endabuse.org. Brought to you by the Family Violence Prevention Fund, the Waite Institute for Violence Prevention, the Ad Council, and this station.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine.
Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Let me say this: I appreciate everyone getting involved and giving their opinions and their perspectives. Some of you are disagreeing about our discussion in hour number one. I can respect that, and I can appreciate that. I'm still not going to change my mind if I see a lot of that type of defense where you're only rushing 3 and dropping 8 today. I'm just going to literally lose it. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. But with that being said, let me speak now with Brandon B.J. Jones of HBCU Game Day. Brandon, good afternoon, good PM to you, and you enjoyed and you survived homecoming last week, correct?
I did get it was a wonderful homecoming. I just had fun, man. It's always good being back on campus, being back, with the people you played with and classes with. And I'm not going to lie, it took me about to Wednesday to feel, back 100% to myself.
Look, you didn't sound like you was all together right just a while ago, brother. I was like, he's still hungover.
Between the food, BJ, and just the scenery, oh my goodness, just unbelievable. Well, what a day!
Yeah.
And Southern got a victory, albeit some heart-stopping moments. Let me get your overall thought on the ball game last week. I'm interested to see what your take on Southern's 35-31 victory over Alabama A&M.
Offensively, you're starting to see Southern come together, and you're starting to see Ladarius Skelton starting to look more like he did last year compared to the way he did earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good sign. The bad sign is secondary play seems to be getting worse. You remember after FAMU going to UAPB, how the secondary seemed like they had turned the corner.
Mm-hmm.
But after that Prairie game, it's been downhill. And the thing for Southern is this: Southern offensively is doing enough. The defense is what's allowing other teams to stay in the ball game, and not getting those crucial stops and putting the other teams out of their misery. And that's something that you worry about coming down the stretch. Not so much today, but going to Jackson State in an environment that could be ruckus, to say the least. And then 2 weeks after that in the Dome in New Orleans. You want to be clicking on all cylinders. That's offensively, defensively, and on special teams. Right now, you need the passing defense. Because running, you're not able to run the ball on Southern. That's already been established. But that passing defense has to get better.
Now, it's interesting that you say that, because everybody has kind of been having those issues about the pass defense and discussing it. Now, I've had people during the show, bring up the point that there's been some injuries on the defensive line, which is a valid point. But how much of that is injuries and playing, cornerback? And we talked about Southern's projected starters at cornerbacks. They're not out there. So Tamaris, the transfer from Memphis, he at one point he had interceptions in 3 or 4 straight games. Is it a combination of a lack of a pass rush? Is it, in your opinion, that Southern maybe can try something else besides their basic situation as far as in third and long, dropping 8 back in coverage and rushing 3? Or should they just try something else?
From me being a defensive guy,
mm-hmm.
that played on the defense, coach defense, I feel like you got to shake it up. One of the things that Southern has been hurt with is Jordan Lewis, his injury. And even if you watched the game last week, he was able to get to a kill blast. But him having that hand wrapped up, he's only able to use one hand. So he can't reach and grab like he's normally able to do. Do you remember Joe Davis, how he started off the early part of this season and the middle of the season?
Mm-hmm.
He has to show back up. So that pass rush has to get better. Then once the pass rush gets there and you flush the quarterback out of the pocket, i.e. like last week, secondary, you have to make sure that you stay on your time. Because there are a few times where last week where Kilglass was flushed out of the pocket, pressure got to him, and then he throws the ball to a wide open receiver because the secondary has come back up to the line of scrimmage. So it's been a combination. I would personally like to see some variety in the defense. If you know that you are not as strong in the secondary, that means you have to get to the quarterback. So I wouldn't mind seeing, different blitzes, different blitz schemes. They kind of help that secondary out a little bit. So
could you live with getting beat, being aggressive?
Yeah, being aggressive. It leads you to getting beat. But it's feast or fathom. You know what I'm saying? I can respect that more than just sitting back and just being picked apart. And that, and from the eye, that's what it appears to be happening to this pass defense.
And you've been on the sideline, and I'm in the press box, and I got a beeline on. I'm looking at Mr. Washington, defensive coordinator. Now, this is my opinion. What I'm about to say, Coach Odoms is heavily involved in that defensive scheme. Washington, and he's a mild-mannered guy to me. And he moves, Odoms is right there. They bumped into each other a couple of times.
Yep.
Now, to me, just my opinion, if my expertise is defense and I'm the head coach and I've got a defensive coordinator who has NFL experience, collegiate experience, I'm going to let him be. Now, if there's a problem, then we'll discuss it because I'm the CEO of the program. But it just seems like to me that Coach Odom's emphasis is, that's the way I'm going to put it, he has a heavy, heavy, heavy influence on that defense. And one would say, does Southern have a defensive coordinator, or is it co-defensive coordinators? Interesting.
One thing about coaching, Carlos, is that if the head coach is an offensive guy, i.e., kind of what you see with Dooley down at Prairie View, or even Gus Malzahn at Auburn, if he's an offensive guy, his hands are heavy in the offense. If he's a defensive guy, his hands are heavy in the defense. It's hard to lay back. People make it seem like it's easy to do, but I played for Pete Richardson. Pete Richardson is a defensive back. His hands, his fingerprints were in every part of their defense, especially the defensive back. So it is hard for head coaches to do. And it's coming from a guy that has played and coached. If that head coach is an offensive or defensive guy, you can almost bet that they're going to be sitting in on meetings. They're going to be heavily involved in the game plan, and game day on that side of football. That's their expertise.
Well, that kind of answers my situation. My thoughts on that. Hopefully they're going to get better. Hopefully they're going to mix it up, add some variety to it, and be successful. I would say it can't get any worse.
No.
And I will say this: the last 2 weeks they've faced the number 1 and 2 probably, and it's maybe debatable, quarterbacks in the conference. That won't happen this week, next week, and the Bayou Classic. Albeit, you still can get torched, though.
Yep.
Well, I want to know. You played the game, you coach. I appreciate your candid points and perspective. Now, with that being said, I'll let you finish up. We got about 6-7 minutes. Finish up the Southern A&M game. You got anything else to add to it?
The biggest thing was this. The Southern has faced off against, you look at that run defense. Look at what Southern did to Devontae Tucker as well as Jordan Bentley. Rushing yards are hard to come by with that defense. Even look at what the defense did a week prior to that to Deshaun Waller and that Alcorn State running defense. That rushing offense. That run defense has been amazing all year. I hope you can shore that up. Like I said, glad that Southern got the win against Alabama A&M. That drive by Ladarius Skelton and that offense, once they went down with 4:48 left to go, I think that's going to be a drive that's going to stick out if Southern's able to accomplish the goals that they set out to accomplish this year. I think that people are going to go back and look at that drive and say that may have been the turning point of the season.
Yeah, we'll mark that down. The 2 red zone opportunities inside the 1-2 yard line. Southern scores. I think the game takes on a different turn.
Oh yeah, you nail those is over. You nail those is over. You got to work on that because one was just a simple quarterback sneak, and your offensive line just didn't get any push. And that can't happen. But hey, at this point, it's survive and advance. And if you're Southern, you're in a good spot because you're sitting back. You got your Virginia Lynchburg. Hopefully, you're able to get some work in, and you got other critical games in the conference that are going on that have an impact on Southern as well as a few other teams in the conference today.
Well, that leads me right into it. Looking at the day's schedule in the conference, and we'll get over to the MEAC, and then your top 5 Black college football poll. Jackson State and Alabama A&M. I said Alabama A&M is going to win it, but now I'm not so sure. What do you think about that game?
For some reason, I am leaning Jackson State, and I don't know why. My eyes are telling me that Alabama A&M is a better football team, but talking to, listening and, Charles Edmonds and some of the other guys, I feel like somebody out there knows something that I don't know. And I'm going to go with that somebody. I think that Jackson State gets it done today. You wonder, this is the key with Alabama A&M and talking to some Alabama A&M people this week. You wonder how much that loss against Southern took out of Alabama A&M. Mm-hmm. That's the key. How much did that loss take out of it? And if you're Alabama A&M, you need this one or you're out. Jackson State still controls their own destiny, so this is a big game for both. And I'm pretty sure people in the stands are going to be trying to keep an eye on what's going on over in Grambling because that game also impacts both Jackson State and Alabama A&M.
Who you like in that ball game?
I am leaning Alcorn. I would not be shocked just because Alcorn, for whatever reason, doesn't play well down in Grambling. They have lost their last 4. Going to Grambling, have not won a game in Grambling since December 2nd of 2006. That's a long time. But I like the Braves, but I think they're going to get Grambling's best shot. I think that the Grambling that you have seen prior to today won't look like the Grambling that you see today. I think they're going to get Grambling's best shot, but I like Alcorn. Also, keep an eye on that game because if Alcorn wins that ball game, that eliminates Alabama State from SWAC division contention. Also, it would eliminate Alabama A&M if they were to lose today. They would be gone. And also, if you're Jag, if Alcorn wins today, that means you are 1 win away from clinching the Western Division title. Yeah, that means that Southern could possibly clinch the Western Division title in Jackson, Mississippi, a week from today. It's so much hinging on that Alcorn Grambling game, and I think folks across the conference are going to be wearing purple and gold or black and gold, depending on where their team sits, because it's going to impact a lot.
Well, I can imagine after the day I'll be getting text messages with the emoji of smoke, because that will also mean another trip back to Lorman if things work out. But that'll come in due time. But you got to win the week. Over in the MEAC, FAMU not eligible. North Carolina A&T, I still think
they will. I wouldn't be surprised if they're representing the conference in the Celebration Bowl.
I wouldn't be either. Yeah, I would not be either. They got one. They got two more hurdles. They got Bethune-Cookman next week, and they got North Carolina Central. North Carolina Central has improved since the middle of the season. Bethune-Cookman will be tricky, but it looks like A&T is headed back. They got around their biggest obstacle, in my opinion, which was South Carolina State a week ago with that 22-20 victory in Orangeburg, by the way.
Yeah, boy, South Carolina State much improved, but they've lost a couple of tough ones. I'm sure that they're disappointed, but they seem like they're going back to the way they used to be as far as tough defensively, and now offensively they've gotten better. Coach Pugh has survived.
Crazy to think about it. They were trying to run them out of town with the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, so I think he's put himself in better shape, in my humble opinion, from the outside looking in. Your top 5 black college football teams.
All right, in the 5 spot, I still have South Carolina State. I think that they are a tough ball game. You look at them, they lost a 4-point game to FAMU and a 2-point game to North Carolina A&T. So I have them in the 5 spot. I have Bethune-Cookman in the 4 spot. They're getting ready for that showdown against North Carolina A&T a week from today. That's probably going to decide who goes to the Celebration Bowl. In the 3 spot, have the Aggies of North Carolina A&T. They're just rolling on along. And then the 2 spot, we got the smoke people, as you call them, the Alcorn State Braves. And in the 1 spot, I still have FAMU. They've been rolling on along. And they're having a special season. They've gone through so much in Tallahassee over the last decade plus. And you're happy for them, but you still kind of feel bad for them because you were close to where you've been trying to get back to, and now you're not eligible. So, tough for them, but I got them in the 1 spot.
Well, appreciate the time as always. We will talk with you next week. BJ, enjoy yourself. Hope your recovery is 100%. By this time next week, you're young. You'll be all right.
All right, Carlos, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. We'll talk with you next week. Want to thank Brandon B.J. Jones, Charles Edmond, Santoria Black were all my guests, and the good brother, Dr. Michael Prince. Once again, happy wedding anniversary to Dr. Michael Prince. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you very much, brother. And we're going to do it right. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I understand. Thanks to everyone who listened in, sending in text messages. Appreciate you as well. Make sure you tune in next Saturday morning we're going to say, stay tuned for a message on social media